So I'm Uwe Greiner. I'm a gaffer who's based here in Munich, and I'm like working in the film industry for over 30 years now. That's I think also the reason for the glasses. Um, and so for me, my LED history started quite early because I was using LEDs, let's say from 2011 on, not on a massive scale, but like on special occasions that brought us the opportunity to put a light somewhere where you couldn't the years before because you didn't have that small fixtures in the film industry. So that LEDs weren't that good. Maybe everybody knows that, but in the end, it's sometimes better you have some light than no light. So, and that was the transition into LED for me, and that grew more and more over the years. So, and as we know, then at one point the sky panel arrived, so everybody got into the LED world, and so the LED world grows from year to year. So, um, and of course, in the end, you are thinking about what would be able to replace. Yeah, I think the first thing that we replaced was the tungsten fixtures because they're not very effective and the output was low for with a big power consumption. And now we're starting with the new fixtures we now have. We are starting to replace bigger HMIs. Yeah, for example, I think everybody knows the M18. That was like a workhorse for many years. And I started, I would say, maybe 3 years ago, I stopped using them and switched into bigger LEDs. And so here was a big step for us was the Nanlux 1200, because for me that was the first fixture on the LED basis that had really a punch. And so I we're testing this in Constellation. There's an Apple show I did with Marcus Furter at DP, and there we had an interesting, let's say, test because were we were planning to do like outer space stuff, so you need a sun and no other light there. And so we're thinking about to use a HMI open phase. And then we're thinking about to have smaller, more controllable fixture for the close-ups and everything. And that was what we used the 1200 for, or what we tested the 1200 for. And we never started at HMI. We're going all the way with the 1200. It did the job. And it was, these space suits are white and other things are not. So we were always like on the edge of clipping. So, and then we realized the control to bring this white to a special level is like much faster and easier if you go on an LED basis. And so that was for me a big mind changer because I realized it's possible to do it. So, and for the next thing, that was September 5, also with Marcus, for all the exterior shots, we skipped all HMIs and we went into LED fixtures like the Nanlux 1200B at that point already. And so then that was the point that I thought, okay, maybe there's possibilities to replace it more and more. And then the 5000B came out last year. And so I was thinking about to replace every HMI if you on a, let's say, not super big scale show. So, And the heavy thing was that in I was offered to do a movie shot on 35 mil. So, and it sounds a little bit crazy to say, okay, we go back to 35, but we are shooting HMI or LED only. So, and it was quite hard to convince the DP to go this way. And he's, of course, output issues and maybe color. And so it was hard to convince him. In the end, it was not me, it was the production manager who convinced him, because he said, you want to shoot on 35, so we have to lose some things from the list. And so the question was, do we lose the 9K, so the big workhorses to bring much light into the set, or are we skipping the 5K Nanlux and the 2.4K Nanlux that might be our workhorses that we control easily color-wise and intensity-wise? And in the end, he said, yeah, okay, so let's try it. And in the first days, I'll just go further a little, if I can. So in the first days, it was a little bit hard to do it. So because he wasn't really convinced. So, but yeah, in the end, we only had that pictures. And when we started him first, he was a little bit concerned if the output is enough. And let's say in the afternoon, he realized, okay, it's a little bit edgy, like on daytime situations, if you want to bring some artificial light in, but it's quite okay. So the output is not so far away from a big HMI picture, and I can control it to a special level. So I can, in the end, for him, I think the control won over the output. So, and in that case, I have here two pictures. It's like two 5K, so we had three just on standby. And also, what made it easy for us to have it on the truck is like to have it just as the fixture with everything in, no cabling, no PSU. So just by accident, or I don't know if it's by accident, somebody else could tell me. It's exactly the size that you have for these Euro boxes. So you can use this card to wheel that. So that was for us, made it really easy, so we didn't have to think about it. And so the storing was quite easy on the truck and saved some space. You don't need cases and everything. Yeah, and so we we went in through the show, and today I think I just want to talk about how we did it, what option we used, and why we used it. And I think what got a important point is that you have like the fixture that is, that has the punch and the power, and then you can start using different accessories to create special shapes of light. You can have a beam or use a normal Fresnel, as we know, so we can zoom it in and out as we are used to, or we put a octa on, like what we knew from normal LED panels, but that you can also use on the day as a high key eye light. You can just put it on there, wheel it around, daylight. If you're not using a bounce, or it's no space, or there's some reasons you can't, then we use this octadome. Or you were just going with this normal, let's say, open face optics. If you say, we just go for the lumens if we want to bounce or just hit something in. Yeah, and here you can see that we used it on a daily basis. And especially in this set, on the left one, it was in Switzerland. It was a real sunny day and a bigger scene. And so we run a little bit out of power that you would use maybe an 18K. So we didn't have one. So we were not using an 18K. So we're adding the fixtures. And the cool part of it was that we realized we can now shape the light on the butterfly. So we used like a wider open face lens with like on 6500 or something to fill it a little bit cooler. And then we used this harsh open face to just hit the middle that you have this little bit more warm highlight, and then we realized it's nice if you have 3 fixtures behind it because you really can shape it. You can say we're losing one half, and you can, if you're dimming it, you can really adjust the surface, that you can't when you're using HMI, and you didn't need the distance you normally need with an HMI because it's really, you can really flood it out, or you don't see it here, but we often used it. Manufacturer shouldn't hear it, I guess, without any optics. Just you could put it, I would say, here and use it as a bounce light from a super short distance, because often you have like a 20 by frame or 12 by 12 or something, and then you're running out of space, because you have the frame here, and then you go with an M40 or any HMI, you had to create some distance to it, and so that position maybe is where the camera guy is like operating, and so if you go open face on this fixture, you just can go down, you go really close to the surface and have a really soft bounce. So that is what we often used. And then we even solved a problem that I think that convinced the DP most, because we had the scene I showed you before, like with the 3 fixtures through a big frame, and it was on a sunny day, and we were shooting, and everything was nice, and then after that we had to shoot the beginning of the scene, and we had heavy rain. And so it was not really fitting, let's say, and it was cloudy and everything. When we made the photo, it got a little bit better. But then we were thinking about, okay, how can we create a light situation that it's believable that, let's say, 10 minutes later, the sun is shining. And so we use the parallel beam that is like 6 degrees something, and they were sitting in front of a house, so we're using the first one with the open face just to light the house in a warmish sun color, and we hit exactly the position where they sat with a parallel beam that they got really kicked out. And so the actor the mother was waiting there. It was a mother and son. And it was like cloudy and gray and blue. And then he was going there, and the house, at the point that we only saw the house, that we don't see the background that is like gray, we started dimming up the sun. Yeah, you think, okay, you have this overcast. It starts with the overcast sun, so the clouds are kind of getting thinner, and then through a little hole, the beam punched in, and then it was not perfect, of course. So it would have been nicer if it's sunny, but it wasn't. So, and that was a real solution. So we could tell the story, the weather changes, and that, I guess, that was what the DP realized. That is something he couldn't have done before, of maybe with with blades and everything, but you have to have them. It's not, you don't have it normally on the truck, and it's like on the day solution with equipment you have in the truck. So, and that was a very important point to realize. Okay, and let's be honest, an M90 has more punch. You know, it's we should it's obviously, but this flexibility, you know, that is something that you realize. The LED is not like only you can swap from HMI to LED, but you can really change something. So you get a benefit out of it. So, and that for us made it really easy to be in the show. And it's funny, the next show I do is a show with Russell Crowe and Ethan Hawke. And I was talking to the DP about it and showed him the pictures. And I can't show you the results yet of this thing because it's I signed an NDA for that. But I showed him some on a private basis some pictures, and he said, "Okay, we go with the same setup. We have 3 5Ks, we have 2.4Ks, and that's how we do the show. So we're gonna have like." On like 3 days, we have an 18K with us. So it's in the moment hard to replace. But so I would say it will be the way I'm gonna go over the next shows. Yeah. And I have to have a look at it. Okay, we're fine. And also what I forgot to say, what made it really easy for us is we didn't even have to change the fixtures. Yeah. The only thing we did to make a complete different setup, we lost the butterfly and we changed one accessory from a more floody open phase optic to the parallel beam. So it's like 5 minutes and you're ready to go for a complete other scene. And so we were just going through the movie with all these different options. Yeah. So in this case, we want to have the sun, harsh sun in the window there. So we realized, okay, what would you do in the past? You would go for a Fresnel, and normally, so from my perspective, in the last years we were not using HMI Fresnel, for example. Yeah, we're going for the output. So we used PARS or M40, M90, all these. And so you don't have the benefits of Fresnel sun. Yeah, you were like accepting it that you go with the PAR light or the PAR-ish light. And in this case, you just swap to the Fresnel, and then we had in this room a beautiful sun. And also in this case, we were just bouncing it. And also with the Fresnel, because you can, with the zoom, adjust how spotty you want it. You can go full spot. So to have like this dot just for the eye, or get more whitish to have like a soft fill. And that was most of the time the reason we used the Fresnel, to have this flexibility to shape the width of the beam. And of course, another good thing is, in this case, we were shooting down there in the bathroom and the staircase and hallway. So of course, all my electricians were like really working hard on it. And this light, you don't have to have somebody there. You know, if you want it a little bit softer, it's just one fingertip on your blackout and you soften it, or you harden it, or you say, I want to go from 4.3 to 3.2. Yeah. So all this obvious LED benefits, but it's quite cool because the Fresnel is motorized, so you can also, without anybody there, adjusting it to the wish you have. You want to have this light working. Yeah, here you see that was like a softer bounce, and that was for us, let's say, a classical, little bit overcast, cloudy daylight setup, because we could also adjust the color a little bit. Sometimes you would just go for a bounce, no fixture, but we started in the cases that we wouldn't use a fixture to use one, because you could adjust the color on the day or in the moment. Sometimes you have this wide shot, and somewhere in the picture you have like some warm light. And if you go to the close-ups, you will also want to find some warmish light in there, and you might go just have a little warmer fill. So and it's also something that you might have not done but now you can do it easily, because you can adjust it to a point where it feels right for you. And for us, for the interiors, we were like, oops. We were using reflectors a lot. And that is, let's say, an obvious setup that makes your life easy. So on the left side, you see the concept was no light from the outside, because the windows are so high, we don't want to bring a machine in, blah, blah, blah. And on the day, we realized it does not look so cool as we thought. So we need to have some light from the outside, and we had the issue, of course, the machinery was not there. So we had to do it from stands, but of course I can put a fixture up there on the stand, but the fall off will be incredible, because I'm like 1 meter away from the window. And so you can create the distance over like the reflector, thanks to Jakob who built it. And with the parallel beam, you can really like put the light on the point where you want it, Even on this distance, let's say if you put a 9K there, even full spot, it wouldn't make it. Yeah. So we would really have this punchy light and create the distance, have the tight beam to don't lose any light. And even if you go on the machine and as a direct light, the M40 or whatever wouldn't do it. You would have to go to M90 or M18 to create the distance that the fall off in the room is believable. So that was the reason that for the interiors we used this setup really a lot. Reflector, parallel beam, and also on the right side you see it was hard to create some distance there. Of course you could put a fixture there, but if you say it's a little bit too close, then you can't get further away, because after that there was a garden that we're not allowed to go on, as everybody from us knows. That happens every day. It's like, you can go here, but you can't go here. And so we could control the fall off over the distance of the light. You can go further away from the mirror, so you have a little less fall off. Or if you say no, we want to like kick a little bit more in, you get closer to create more fall off. And so the fall off was controllable, and you didn't lose light, because it's really well centered, and there is no real, there's a honey beam maybe, but that's not a like normal fixture on the market. You can spot that hard. And here you can also see um, it's the size. We exactly hit the window. We create the distance for the light. So that for us, for the interiors, was a big, big workhorse. And the next thing I come to is, and also what we often hear is, yeah, but we can also go, if you want to change the color, we can go to the, like in the HMI world, it's easily, we can just gel it to exactly the color we want it. And it's true, of course, but in the end, you lose, if you go like half CTO, you lose a third of your output. Yeah, then you're like going far away from the 4K. Yeah, you go to like 2.8K output wise. And also, and that's the next picture is thank you to my dear colleague Helmut Prein. He did Cliffhanger last year. I was on that show for the stand unit. And that's the picture that you realize that it's so easy, you can just gel it, is maybe not always the case. Yeah, and you have these situations. You have the picture somewhere, you maybe can't go there. So normally, as a DP or also as a gaffer, you would accept that's the color, because as you see, maybe you can go there, but I think you shouldn't. Huh? And yeah, that is also, that's not a 5K, it's a 2.4. But you realize you have these situations where you lose control. You want the light on exactly that spot and it had to be there, and you have a brave rigging crew to bring it there, let's say, with the ropes. But then you're like, the thing is out of control. If you put a 2.5K there, it's the color, and that's it. And that is when you realize these are the situations that you run into, and then you realize, yeah, it's nice if we could control this, but you can't. So, and that's also, for me, a big plus to have the situation when you have a discussion about the output and gelling possibilities. But in the end, yeah, you have, especially the gelling is loud and slow and yeah, everything we know, especially close to some actors. So, and here's just another example for some bouncing rigging possibilities. It's quite low profile. It's running on, in this case it doesn't, but normally you can run it on like 2 Shukos. That's the next part, of course. Yeah, let's say the power is not so far away from the HMI world. Yeah, so let's say a 4K HMI and a 4K LED, I guess from the pure output is quite close together, but you don't have the flexibility to control the color. And tungsten is, of course, a different case. If you go to tungsten in this setup, like you need maybe you need a 63 amp cable, right? And I don't know, maybe I'm speaking quite fast, I guess, I'm sorry. Some question popped up. Yeah. Florian it's not allowed to ask some bad questions.
I hope you didn't mention this already, but you mentioned if you gel the HMI, you lose a third of the output. But the bicolor LEDs, don't you also lose output when you change the color temperature to the middle range?
You lose a little bit, but not really a lot. Yeah, maybe he knows better,
No,
but it's really super. It's like I don't know, really a
So,
lot, not a
so
lot.
basically, it's like if you have, let's say, 2400 and you have 2400 on each end, so then basically you are getting a reduction on efficiency when it comes to tungsten. So let's say versus if you go full power on the tungsten versus on daylight, you got about 20% less. But that's still more, I mean, still less than one third of the stock.
And especially if you go like on to like from tungsten to HMI, it's not 30%, it's 45% loss. Yeah, so um, it's true. Yeah, it's not a super big amount, but in the end, um, I think the the benefit is the controllability. Yeah, so it's you keep the output nearly, and you have the flexibility to control everything you want. So. So, and the next thing is what it's also very useful to work on is in the virtual production world. Because as you can see in this case, it's also a 2.4, and we like created a rising sun with it. And in this case, it's like good to have the PSU external, let's say. And it's good to have like for us, it was always good to have a 2.4 and a 5K. So the 5K is the powerful one that, as you can see, is not very small and it has some weight. Not as much as me, but uh, and and the 2.4 is much more lightweight. So if you have special rigging things, and the 2.4 is enough, it's helpful to go on this path to just save the weight, especially if you go on a crane or like this is like working on a vari chip. And let's say, what would you use for it? Maybe in the end a T12 or something, and that's I think twice the weight. And in that case, it's also good to have a DMX controlled because the background has the rising sun, and you can control your DMX controlled fixture over the how's that the game engine, the I forgot the name, the Unreal Engine. And so you get like they do the rising sun, and that information gets into the grandma, and that is like giving the information to the light. And as the background, you have the rising sun in the background, you also have the rising sun on your fixture. So of course you can also do it by like dimming or something, but then it's really synchronized and you keep the color, you know. Normally, I think for a sunrise, you wouldn't go to T12 because it starts super, super warm and maybe you don't want it. You normally want to keep the color. So maybe you would go to HMI. You know, so you are on a, I don't know, 4K Fresnel at least to do the same thing. And then weight-wise, you're somewhere else. Yeah. And plus the shutters and everything you need. So that was the reason when you went into virtual production. Um, it's it's obvious that having the control of a LED makes it much easier. And so, and this is an example. It's the same setup, but it's an example that for me it's quite important that the manufacturer listens to the people who are using the lights. And this is something that I really like about Nanlux, because yeah, that was the 2.4, and then if you put accessories on, you get some problems with the balancing, and you can of course adjust it with this cord up there, and we did this. But of course, that's something like people think about. Okay, yeah, you have issues with other manufacturers as well, and you are like working around it. But in this case, it was really nice that like Nanlux realized that is an issue, and they put this airline track inside, so that in every accessory you have, you realize on which number you have to put the fixture, that it's well balanced. Yeah. And so this is, when you see this is like the first generation of a big output LED, that's the second. And you realize they were listening to the issues we have with it. Yeah. So, and it's really something that also my crew was like, oh no, shit. Like our fingers and blah, blah, blah. And then when we like packing the truck, they realized, oh, for this next fixture, they were thinking about it and they had a solution for it. So, and so for me, that was a big issue. And, you were asking people that were using it, so what's important for you? Also, what's quite important is this thing down here. Because if you see like what electricians do, then they put it on the stand. They first put it on here, did another like grip, and then do the last way, And other manufacturers like always are breaking down here, because you have to put it here. It's like you can't handle it, as a normal human being. And so it's something also that is important, for a DP doesn't matter, of course, but on the daily workflow, it makes it much easier. If you realize, okay, it's gonna break, you have to be more careful. Carefulness costs time. And so, and it's also, it has like, it's, how do you say it? It has some springs in it that you don't got so hard pushes to the fixture. And these are all these things that make it practical for the light department. Of course, for the DPs, that really doesn't matter that much. But for us, it's important. And of course, we want to keep the fixture alive, at least to the end of the show. So, and for the rentals, even longer. So, and let's have a look. Yeah, and what's always an issue is like the situation that you think, we are like mixing different fixtures, and that's also for me important that you realize that are also like fitting into everything you have already. It's not that you have to say, okay, we have to now go, we have to lose everything we got or that what we love. You can just mix it, and we shot on 35. So it was like, I think color-wise, there's a lot of sensitivity to that. But here we're just going like that fixture for this and this for that, and it was no big issue. So, and also here we're like, also with these HMI balloons, just mixing with the HMIs, fixtures from different manufacturers. And I think for me it's good to know that now there's a new fixture coming out that is from a professional manufacturer, let's say, and it will fit into my package, because I think everybody has like tools that he likes for special reasons, and it's important for me to know that all modern LEDs will easily fit into this workflow. And this is one of the last pictures. Is we had this setup that was a little bit complicated for us, because we wanted to create something that hits in from two sides into like, there was Mark Strong and Nicole Kidman sitting behind this window, And Nicole Kidman is normally, her time window is quite small. So I think we shot it with 3 cameras. And also here, we knew we need like a topping that brings in some light. That was the reason to curve it. But in the end, to level the light on Nicole, we used the Nanlux, because that was, if you shoot with like Nicole, or I guess other people's that level, you can't change anything anymore when they're on set. You light it with your doubles, and if they sit in there, they're shooting. If you start going out and level something, or even if you like on the walkie-talkie say, we have to bring it down a little, blah, 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 they might stand up and say, you're not finished yet. I'm leaving. And in that case, for us, it was obvious. The real leveled light for Nicole has to be an LED fixture that we like can. It's just on the iPad. Do you do something? No. So, that's that they feel there is no working happening behind their backs. There, and I can understand in a way. If you they work on a high level. These actors are not like only superstars. They of course are acting on a really high level, and they have to be concentrated. And it's of course every actor has to. But if you're sometimes really like working on the edge, you need the full concentration. And from that standpoint, I can understand that they don't want to have so many things going around. And so, for us, also in this case, the fixture like saved us to know we can adjust it last second, and so we went for that. And also on the show we did it. It was a 110-day show. It was more or less full LED show, exactly for the same reason. So I have to. So, and I think we. Yeah. And yeah, so for me, the workflow through all these accessories and the fixtures, the controllability, made it quite easy, because I like to have control on set. I don't want to have people running around all the time and like working with gels close to the actors, all these things. And this is what this world now is bringing to us. Of course, also speed and all these things that are like required in the moment, but also you can like have a concentrated set, because there's not so much happening at a special point when you start shooting. And you can even adjust between first and second take, second and third take. All these things you still can do, and nobody has to move. It's because normally the position is right. It's just the level might not. So, or the color. So, and that's a reason for me. And I convinced an XTP to go exactly the same way, to say, let's go on full flexibility. Let's go into the LED world, and like, let's go for this. Let's go on with the revolution, and we will see what's the next thing to come. I don't know. So after the LED, but I think it will take some time. So thank you very much. I hope I didn't speak too fast and my English is not too bad. But so are there any questions left? I would love to answer them.